So we're outside here at the Dirksen Senate building, and we're approaching a protest. Looks like it is a mash of Stand With Brett and also those that oppose him.
18 women who confirm what he's done, that he's grabbed them. I have 18 women. How many women's voices does it take to equal one powerful man's voice for you?
Some proof.
20?
Hillary
25? 30?
Hillary Clinton
40?
and so many
The Hillary
women.
Clinton card. You know what? She wasn't my first choice in the primaries. I work for Martin O'Malley. I would have preferred to have him. But
Hillary
she's
Clinton is not in
irrelevant
this
in this
discussion.
argument
The
right now.
discussion
We've
is
got
the
Brett
credibility
Kavanaugh right there.
She's a huge figure in the Women's March who's supporting this whole thing. I think she is.
Hillary Clinton actually was not at the Women's March either time, but apparently you didn't. There are a lot of women who preferred Bernie or preferred Martin O'Malley. I preferred Martin O'Malley. I worked as a precinct captain for Obama in 2008, thousands of hours against Hillary.
But what about the African American babies? Now the black women for abortion? Seriously? That does not make no sense. It's inconsistent. So dogs can have the right to live, but unborn babies don't have the right to live. You know, it's a contradiction of what they're believing. You know, so now, you know, I don't believe in Black Lives Matter anymore, because when they started black women for abortion, to me, right there, they really lost their cause. Before, yes, I was totally for Black Lives Matter, not anymore. Because I feel like all lives, if they want to go for only black people, fine, but what about the babies? Babies are more important because babies don't have a voice. And the abortion is going to increase. More African American babies are going to be sacrificed because of these people want them dead.
The FBI said he has not been fired. But that was debunked a year and a half ago.
I believe
They
Kate.
actually have proof.
Who proved?
I believe
The
Kate.
FBI, no, the FBI came out publicly and said,
CNN and Fox News, the mainstream media.
oh, the mainstream, yeah, you're a right winger. I don't know why.
CNN is mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's talking about
No,
both.
no. Yeah, show me a clip. Pull out your phone. Show me the clip on CNN where it was proved that Obama wired.
I didn't say Obama. I said the intelligence agencies.
Well, that's because he was conversing with Russians. That's because they were aware that Paul Manafort, who's now been indicted, who's singing like a bird, so we're about to get a whole lot of information. The intelligence agencies were watching the Trump campaign because they were conversing with Russians. Do you understand that Russians are a foreign adversary, you crazy lady? Why did you write up a sign? Where'd you get your little print sign? Why are they all printed signs? That's interesting that nobody made their own sign. Oh, I do. I support a woman's right to choose and to make her own choices with her life.
Not African American babies. If you want to sacrifice your own
Ethics
babies.
in Government
Not
Act
African American
expired
babies.
back in 1999. There has been no special counsel.
Touch is the sticker. That is really convincing. That doesn't look astroturfed at all.
Only the rapist and their enablers stand for Brett. Only the tyrants and their enablers stand
I don't know what to say.
And that's really hard to, it's hard to
Only
stand
organized
back.
crime would stand with Brett.
About Kavanaugh.
I mean, I don't know.
A woman's right to choose.
See Article 3. That's why there have been a number of judiciary acts passed throughout history.
I have a declaration of
If he was
independence.
running for president,
A
you would have had
declaration
some
of
different
independence
shoes.
that include women, Negroes, IGTV or whatever them. I know what they and who they are.
Whatever. Exactly.
But I give them
whatever.
peace in my world.
This is not
You mean-
peace. This is not peace. You're yelling at everyone.
Hey,
This is not peace.
and the book say I speak loud as when a lion roars.
You are not a
You
lion.
better know all signs,
You're a kitty cat.
other than the
young
one
man.
you're holding.
You are a kitty cat. You are no lion.
A kitty?
You are a kitty cat.
Yes, 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 yes. They call me the Lion of Judah.
No, they don't. No, they don't. I can guarantee you that.
Have
they
you
do
ever
not.
seen that lion?
Yes, I have.
See? Now you should be a judge. Because you're a lying somebody. Nobody ever seen this teardrop. Nobody.
You smoke
Except for
PCP.
Kane.
You're smoking PCP.
Except
You're out here
for
telling us
Kane.
you're telling us you're gonna run for president 2020.
I don't run. My shoes are too hard. I just walk up to my throne.
You're trying to
walk
insinuate
up
that
to my
you're
throne.
Native American and you're somehow.
No, I'm an American Negro, son.
No, man, you're
I
just
was
somebody
born
that's
Cape
out here
Fear
smoking
Hospital,
PCP,
Fort
talking shit.
Bragg, North Kakalaka.
He told me. He said it. He said it.
I said what?
You said you was smoking that shit.
I said on top of Mount Sinai, I smoked the weed.
It wasn't
I saw a
weed though.
guy named
PCP.
Musa.
Look at him. Listen to
Well,
him.
it was a burning bush. It was a burning bush. And like Bill Clinton, I inhaled. Like Bill Clinton,
Look.
I inhaled.
Cannabis is a flower. It is medicine. It is not a
Oh,
drug.
there you go.
Okay.
There you go. Now you want to justify why you feel good.
Okay. Cannabis is a medicine.
Hasta la
He's not
vista,
smoking
amigo.
cannabis. It's very clear to me. He's not smoking cannabis. He's smoking something else.
Hey,
What else you guys want to talk
we're
about?
gonna do that. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. But we're gonna tell the people, go home, we're coming. We're coming. I'm coming.
Your poster is backwards. Your poster?
Everything bullying, everything.
So we're here in the Senate building today during the Kavanaugh hearings, and we have two sides of the aisle. We have Women for Kavanaugh, and we also have resistors who are protesting and supporting Christine Blasey Ford. They're pretty split. They're on either side of the lobby in the Senate building, and Capitol Police and other police are here manning the operation. Let's speak to some of the other protesters. Do you want to go see if Brass's office will get not until we... So it seems that a lot of the protesters have their fists up and they're standing in solidarity with Christine Blasey Ford and other people who say they were victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault over the years. A lot of people have tape over their mouths and they have their fists in the air and they're silent protesting. Dozens and dozens of people in the lobby of the Senate building, also in some of the halls upstairs and on different floors, men and women coming together to support her.
He said as long as they're here is fine, not there. I mean, we can text him.
Yeah, that's the, okay.
Yeah.
The sides are on the floor, so that's even better. Now, also, now they can hold their hands up, they can do the tape on their mouths, but they can't walk together in a
No,
group.
we're not moving. Everybody's just
Okay.
chilling here.
All right, I
And then
just
there's
want
going to
to-
be things outside.
Okay, and if it was a time where we were going to arrest, we would give you warnings
yeah, and
first, and then.
we would give you guys a heads up.
All right, that's all
Awesome,
I want.
thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, my name is Lieutenant Johnson with the United States Capitol Police. This is your first warning. What you are doing is illegal activity. This is considered a demonstration. You need to cease and desist or you will be arrested. This is your first warning.
So Capitol Hill Police did warn protesters who are congregated in the middle of the Senate building that they need to clear the area, but they are chanting, they're singing, they're saying that they believe Christine Blasey Ford. The Capitol Hill Police are keeping an eye on them to make sure that they don't congregate and block the entrances and exits of the building. So it's pretty controlled at this point.
So we saw two contrasting groups. One was in support of Kavanaugh, and they were sitting there in prayer, and most of them were made up of Liberty students that had come up from Lynchburg, Virginia, earlier today. The other group is very much against Kavanaugh. It's a social warrior justice protest that seems very much almost like a congregation or a church service. They're standing in silence and solidarity. They're singing. They're also having moments of silence for victims of sexual assault. It seems that a lot of these women had been raped and had been victims of sexual assault. So they're really finding solace with each other. Elizabeth Warren is here. She is welcoming bunch of the protesters in the Dirksen Senate building. It seems that she is here to show her support for the Believe Her women. She will be, assumingly, sitting in the hearings later today. Elizabeth Warren is in the purple blazer, and she is meeting with protesters. We're going to try to see if she says any remarks to us. Can't exactly hear what she's saying, but it seems that many of the supporters are very much happy that she is here. It seems that they're interviewing her, taking pictures with her. A lot of media outlets are here. They are covering this event very closely. A lot of protesters have been bussed in this side. A lot of NARAL and Planned Parenthood supporters. A lot of the resources, the Women's March T-shirts. Very organized effort on their part to obstruct this hearing and make sure that Kavanaugh does not get on the Supreme Court. Senator Warren is leaving. We are not exactly sure if she has made any remarks. It seems that she's just there in support, wasn't really there to give a speech, but just wanted to let everybody know that she supports the effort and the protest. Seems that many people in this crowd are very much in support of her and big fans of her, as well as Bernie Sanders. We spoke with one woman who actually preferred Malley over Hillary Clinton.
What is it that the Republicans know that they don't want the rest of them to know? Women have made incredible allegations, and they have a right to go through with respect, and respect means to investigate these allegations, not rush people into a hearing, go through corroborating witnesses, do an FBI investigation. I can't believe that Mr. Kavanaugh wants to go forward. If he believes what he says, then he should want an FBI investigation. This is about getting to the truth. But instead, the Republicans just want to steamroll the women involved here. And that's just not right. And that's what all the people out there are saying.
If your colleagues, if Republicans do vote and they do have the numbers to pass it, will you then view Kavanaugh as a tainted pick?
We're talking about a job application for someone who is about to get, or is at least been nominated for a lifetime appointment to a job that will touch the lives of every single human being in this country. People are asking for it. Just pause and do an investigation of these very serious allegations. That's what people are asking for right now. Do it for women. Do it for survivors of sexual assault. Do it for the people of the United States.
What's your plan moving forward?
Last question. Thank you so much.
Where was NBC involved?
Now, right now,
What's your plan moving forward?
it's to tell our Republican colleagues they should not go forward with a hearing. They should not go forward with a fight until there's been a full investigation from the FBI. And I just don't see, I just don't even get why this is controversial. I mean, if the Republicans truly believe that Kavanaugh is telling the truth, if Kavanaugh believes that Kavanaugh is telling the truth, then they should want an investigation. Bring in the witnesses. Bring in the corroborating evidence. Bring in other people from that time period. Bring in the evidence so that the American people get a chance to see all of the evidence and make their own minds up about this. But the Republicans don't want to do that.
So what do you do?
Well, we do what we're trying to do right now.
When
And
will
that's
you
try
take
to
the
slow them
DNA
down.
test?
So that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Never.
Thank you. Go get him, Senator.
You bet.
Thank you. Here, Tiff, we can just let her go by.
When will you take the DNA test?
Senator Elizabeth Warren, she was giving some remarks to reporters, holding a mini press conference before she went into the hearing room. And, she had a lot to say about Republicans, insisting that they go forth with an FBI investigation. Capitol Hill Police, we see them now urging protesters to put their signs away. They weren't allowing anybody to have signs up in the air. They are allowing them to have tape over their mouth and their fists raised, but no signs. And it was unclear why they're stipulating that people have no signs, but from what we're hearing, no one's allowed to have a sign out. So We'll be keeping an eye on that.
She said that if we hold our signs, we would be arrested. We would be subject to arrest. That we had. No, she didn't say why. She just said that we had to put the sign away or we would be subjected to arrest. We were told we could bring the sign in as long as we had it in a plastic bag, and then we could take it out. So I don't know.
Thank you.
So, do they have to discard the sign altogether, or? Gotta put the signs down, folks. Can't display them.
Capitol Hill Police telling protesters once again they're not allowed to display their signs. They were able to bring the sign into the building, but they can't actually have them out and they can't have them open. So they're not allowed to display them, and they're being pretty steadfast about this rule.
Can I ask you what they're telling you?
They're asking us to put our signs down out of display. I had my sign right down here, right by my thigh, and he told me to put it away. Not sure what he meant by that. Told me to put it on the ground, put it somewhere out of sight. Not sure what they're trying to accomplish.
Did it say anything else, like why or anything like that?
Nope, no explanation, and I've been told by 3 officers so far.
Thank you.
Some confusion with the protesters, unsure why they cannot display their signs, but it's what Capitol Police are urging them to do. So, as of right now, no one is allowed to have a sign. As a replacement, though, a lot of people still have their fists up in the air. It seems to be the only way that they can exclamatorily protest. So.
I got an extra large.
So these protests have been going on all morning. They have been here before 8 o'clock. There was a pro-Kavanaugh rally outside Russell Senate Building, and now they are swarming Hart Senate Building just to make sure that senators take their protests into account. They are urging senators to vote no on Kavanaugh. A lot of these protesters have actually been swarming Republican offices, intimidating them and staffers, as well as just standing there taking pictures. There's a lot of photo ops happening. A lot of girls are posing for protest pictures from various photographers.
Times I held up at all. I dealt with my own family with abuse. So I understand what the survivors are going through. Trust me when I say that. So I do not come lightly with my support of Brett Kavanaugh. My family has been touched by sexual assault.
And when I say the number of survivors outnumber you, I'm talking here. This group in the Hart Senate office building atrium.
They do. And God bless them. I pray for healing for them, that there's hurt here, that people have rallied because there is hurt in a society that has to deal with sexual assault and the propagation of it.
So you want to see Judge Kavanaugh elevated to the Supreme Court?
Yes. I believe he's qualified. Years of service. I believe he merits it.
Can you tell me why you support Judge Kavanaugh?
I look at his record. I look at what he has done in the lower courts and throughout his time on the bench. He's passed. How many background checks do you think you go through to get even to the federal level? I mean, it's just, again, it's division. It's coming against anything that the conservatives or Republicans stand for is what you get. This has nothing to do with survivors. This has to do with a political agenda. I'm sorry.
So do you believe in rule of law and investigation? Don't you think at the very least there's a actual investigation? I don't stand with Clinton. I'm talking about actual process. How could 95% of the documents not be released? I mean, you got to admit, they knew about all these allegations and they haven't actually officially investigated them. So if I was going to be a Supreme Court judge, I would want it to be under the terms of the highest and the most appropriate things possible. I wouldn't want to be rammed in there without actual good process and investigation, because I would be of the caliber of somebody who would demand appropriate investigation, rule of law process, and democratic principles. But someone who's been accused of these things should actually say, let's stop the process and let's do actual investigation if he was actually innocent. There's no reason not to do it. What's the reason not to do it? Why wouldn't you do due process if you were a person of high caliber who is actually appropriately nominated for the Supreme Court? Without an understanding of due process, you shouldn't be there. It's not an opinion, this is a fact. If you're innocent, you welcome investigations. If you're innocent and you believe in the rule of law, you welcome actual process in our democratic country. And if not, you shouldn't be here. He perjured himself before these allegations came out, and he's perjuring himself again and again, besides being an enemy to more than half of the population, women. It's not my opinion, it's fact.
So it seems that a lot of the protesters have their fists up and they're standing in solidarity with Christine Blasey Ford and other people who say they were victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault over the years. A lot of people have tape over their mouths and they have their fists in the air and they're silent protesting. Dozens and dozens of people in the lobby of the Senate building, also in some of the halls upstairs and on different floors, men and women coming together to support her. Why are you guys here today? Tell us what it is you hope to accomplish by being here today.
Today we're here because we want to make sure of two things. First of all, we want to make sure that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford is not alone. She has to sit in that hearing room. She has to take questions right now about the most traumatic experience of her life, and we can't do that for her, but we can be out here, and we can make sure that she knows that despite the horrible treatment that she's gotten, the horrible sexist treatment, that women all over the country have her back. That's number one. The second reason is that we need to make sure that the senators who will be deciding what happens with Brett Kavanaugh, whether or not he goes to the Supreme Court, they need to know that there will be a serious price to pay for putting him there. We are organized, we are angry, we have a very clear directive, and it's 2018, and you do not get to put a rapist on the Supreme Court.
So do you believe that Brett Kavanaugh definitely raped Christine Blasey Ford and the other women that have accused?
Well, I don't think he raped Christine Blasey Ford because she hasn't said that. She said he attempted to. I believe the accounts of all the women, and I'm sure that there are more women there as well, because when we don't hold young boys accountable for their actions, they turn into serial rapists.
I just want to play devil's advocate for a moment, because right now the controversy is that there's not that much evidence to support her claims, corroborate her claims. What do you say to people who are a little skeptical about some of the allegations, and why do women deserve to be believed even if there is no evidence?
So a couple of things. First of all, just statistically, it makes sense to believe survivors. Statistically, it is such an underreported crime. Statistically, the number of times that accusations are false versus the number of times that rapists say they didn't do it, it doesn't add up. It's numbers wise, it is so clear that it makes more sense to believe survivors. But, second of all, we're talking about people who have really different positions of power right now. We're talking about a man who already is, a high circuit judge, right? And then we're talking about a woman who is a citizen. And he has the full force of this administration behind him and supporting him. So just even power-wise, she needs more support than he does. And finally, women do not come forward and put themselves through this if they have another choice. I mean, you don't put yourself through that.
So yesterday we sat down with Juanita Broderick, and she alleges that she was raped by Bill Clinton when he was running for office for governor of Arkansas. And she says that the reason she doesn't believe Christine Blasey Ford is because she herself is a victim, and she, speaking as a victim, doesn't believe her. How do you respond to that?
I mean, there are so many women are survivors. Literally all of us could say that. We could all say, we could all make that argument. That really makes me sad. because I think that we should. That really makes me sad. I think we cannot decide whether or not we believe someone based on whether or not we agree with their politics. The GOP is making rape a partisan issue, but it shouldn't be. We should all be able to say that it's wrong and that we believe women. And unfortunately, it's not restricted to one party or the other, and we have to hold men accountable everywhere.
And do you think that this has become a political issue? And as some people are saying, do you think that some of these accusers are being weaponized by the Democrats, as a tool in this whole political melee that's happening?
I think it's deeply insulting to suggest that women who have already been treated like objects and are, exercising autonomy and coming forward are political pawns. I mean, Christine Blasey Ford in her prepared testimony herself said, "I'm not a pawn," that she's an independent thinker in person. So I think that's a deeply insulting insinuation just that for people to make. And, the other thing that I would say is that, wait, I forgot the other part of your question.
How would you respond to people who say that this has become like a political melee?
I think it has become a political issue because this vote will decide. Are you on the party that supports survivors, or are you on the party that will side with rapists?
But do you think people have already made up their minds going into this hearing? Do you think this hearing will make a difference?
I don't know, because the fact that Grassley scheduled a vote the morning after, and frankly, a lot of the GOP members of the judiciary have stated, I think Lindsey Graham said, we'll listen to the lady, but we're going to push this through. Heller called this a hiccup. So, I think they know what they want to do and they know how they want to vote. But at least this way we can hold them accountable.
And do you think, last question, do you think that people on both sides of the aisle, victims on both sides of the aisle, are treated fairly? A lot of people have made the assertion that other people who have been accused that are Democrats, for example, Keith Ellison, they say he has not been persecuted to the extent that Kavanaugh's been persecuted, and people think that has to do with, party lines. How do you respond to that? Why aren't protesters protesting Keith Ellison, but they're protesting Kavanaugh? How would you respond to that?
Well, I would say, first of all, that conveniently forgets the fact that Al Franken is no longer on the Senate, that John Conyers is out. Don't get me wrong, I think that we need to do more. I think that we should always be pushing to believe survivors and hold men accountable for abuse. But this idea that somehow we only go after Republicans and we never go after Democrats is just false. I think that we need to believe women on all sides of the aisle, and I think that it's a deeply dangerous and frankly sexist assumption to decide that women are lying and are political tools, because we're a lot more than that.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. Or other med students.
So these protests have been going on all morning. They have been here before 8 o'clock. There was a pro-Kavanaugh rally outside Russell Senate Building, and now they are swarming Hart Senate Building just to make sure that senators take their protests into account. They are urging senators to vote no on Kavanaugh. A lot of these protesters have actually been swarming Republican offices, intimidating them and staffers, as well as just standing there taking pictures. There's a lot of photo ops happening. A lot of girls are posing for protest pictures from various photographers. Okay, so we are here at the Kavanaugh protest. There are a lot of Women's March women here. There are also women affiliated with Concerned Women for America that are here to support Kavanaugh. Over 300 Liberty University students had a rally beforehand at 8:30 in the morning. There were a few speeches. Concerned Women for America was here holding the rally. We also have Women March leaders here. Linda Sarsour is here, as well as others. They are wearing black. It is called a blackout. They are also putting duct tape over their mouths and holding moments of silence, raising fists in the air, trying to get senators to listen through their silence while the hearings are proceeding. Hey guys, would you mind if I interview you? We're just trying to find out, why you guys are here. Can you explain where you're coming from, how old you are?
Well, we're all from Liberty University. I'm a freshman, and everyone here is pretty much every different year that you could possibly imagine. So we're here because we're supportive of Brett Kavanaugh and putting him in the Supreme Court because we believe that he is the best judge and juror for the job, that he is very qualified and the most qualified that there possibly could be.
Okay, so I heard that Jerry Falwell sent some buses of students over here. So you guys are all in support of Kavanaugh. What do you think of the allegations? What do you make of them? Do you believe him or the accusers?
I mean, I don't think it's our place to decide. We all have our opinions, but, it's not really our place to decide. We listen to what she says, and if it happened, we support her, and, we're behind her. But there also have been a lot of false allegations just to try and stall it or just to stop it altogether. The Democrats said before Trump even picked anybody that they would stop it no matter what. And that could be this could be that. And yeah, we don't know, but we're supportive because we believe he's the best person for the job.
Okay, yeah, I saw you guys over there praying, and then the other groups are raising fists in the air and putting duct tape over their mouth in silence. What do you think about the contrast of the two groups, and have they said anything negative or mean to you?
Well, we've definitely got a lot of negative because we support something that they don't. It's pretty much been expected with us coming here. We knew that we'd get a lot of resistance, and we're just going to push through and show the glory of God in everything that we do.
Thank you so much, guys.
It was a religious
Okay. Do any of you guys want to do an interview? Do you guys want to do an interview?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we just want to know where you guys are from, how old you are.
I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. I'm 18.
I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm 18 as well.
Okay, where'd you guys come from today?
Oh, Liberty University.
University students. All right, I went there.
Oh, awesome.
So we're just asking why you're here, why you're in support of Judge Kavanaugh, and also if you believe him or any of the allegations that are being brought up against him.
It's like a very serious issue, and like we should always take it seriously. But I don't understand why an accusation should always just destroy somebody. Like it's always innocent until proven guilty, right? Like that's how it's always been. So I mean, we should always listen to people and take their word seriously. But you also have to have evidence of that. Like with this lady, I forget her name, but why wait 36 years and then bring it up as soon as he's about to be an important role of his life? That part never made any sense to me.
So mine's a little bit more laid back. I'm just here kind of for a learning experience and just to kind of see the different sides and how everybody's interacting. And we've already met people that are very unhappy to see people supporting him. And personally I do, because just how I was raised, how I'm I guess seeing how everything's going about with stuff he said. And just also to support the girls from our school, because I know that's really who they wanted to come here, was a lot of the women to support.
So you're saying that there's more women at your school that are in support of Judge Kavanaugh?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that was kind of their push, was to have a lot of females come and support this whole issue. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Have you faced any resistance from the resistance?
We gotten flipped off a couple times, but other than that, just nothing. We actually just got here. No, not yet. No, not really. No.
Yeah, I was at the rally, so I saw a lot of you guys.
Okay.
What did you guys think of the Concerned Women for America rally?
It was good, very positive.
Yeah,
I mean, the ending, of course, someone had to. I just don't like when I see people from our side get mouthy, because we really shouldn't. We should always just, love them where they're at, and if they believe that, that's completely fine. But kind of show them what we feel is the right way and what we know really what is.
Do you think the hearing today is going to make a difference in how senators vote?
I hope so. I really do. I think that people just really listen and come to their senses and just have an open mind and open heart and just look at the main thing is just evidence and everything. And I hope it changes senators' opinions. That's my opinion.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Down. Signs have to stay down.
loudly?
No, quiet.
Okay. We're in Grassley's office. Women for Kavanaugh are standing here watching the hearing on the TV. They had a Concern Women for America rally this morning, a pro-Kavanaugh rally. Over 300 students from Liberty attended, as well as many speakers. It was a very exciting rally.
All three. Because it's a display of our beliefs, basically, and they have a law that backs us in their giant law book. So we're holding them to our sides and our hands, and they're coming up and telling us we need to actually fold them up and put them away. I think it's ridiculous because, I mean, it's our First Amendment right, first of all, to say our rights. And for me, when they said this, so one cop came by and told us you just can't have your signs behind the railing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold it. And another cop by was like, our commissioner told us that you have to take down the signs. And I looked at him, I said, I would like to speak to your commissioner. And so the commissioner came up, and I tried to talk to him, and I was like, well, I need you to tell me the exact law. And he didn't. I was like, well, I need to tell you behind this law. And he's like, I'm not here for a debate. And he walks away.
Has it been peaceful?
It has been peaceful. So it's thankful that they're not making this sign escalated. I still think it's a little ridiculous that we can't hold up a piece of paper with writing on it of our beliefs. Since I'm standing here with my beliefs written on my body, after my first sign was taken down, I had them write, I believe, on my chest along with my Me Too and I am a survivor on my hand, and then the We Believe You, because they can take away our paper, they can take away our pens, but they can't take away our beliefs, they can't take away our voices, they can't take away our own bodies. And this whole thing is here because we're here for women's body. So I thought it was more powerful to write on the bodies.
Pleasure. We're with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Before you bolt, though, I just want to give you an opportunity to, give your platform, say what you hope to hear.
I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm good.
You sure you don't want to comment on what you hope to see happen after today's testimony?
So we should do some more.
Linda, why won't you give us a comment? We're giving you an opportunity to state your platform.
What are we going to do?
So I just wanted to give you encouragement, tell you this is the only way we can keep this. It's for you, it's the voice of the people to show up. It's so critical what you're doing because the majority was going to be able to ramrod his nominee through. And because of the American people, because of you, your individual voices, you're the ones that are making a difference. They're not listening to fellow senators, but they are listening to you. And that's where the power lies, with each and every one of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our country, for my daughter's future, for all of our kids. And then we have to send this message. And so thank you for doing that. I just want to give you some encouragement and be strong. Remember, these are your buildings. This is your house.
That's right.
That's the people.
That's right. Yeah, attach this to his office.
So you're always welcome in mine.
How are you feeling?
I feel better now than I did a couple weeks ago before people spoke up, before you started showing up and making your voices be heard. The strength comes from you. It really does. And we can be in the trenches as fellow senators all day long, but it really, the difference makers are you, just like the difference makers were when it came time to their attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act. It was the people who made the difference there, and so your voice is really what's.
We're not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're staying.
Well, you're going to go to the hearing room next, right? Yes. So go there. Go in and just be loud. They're not going to let you in, but make sure they hear you anyway.
Oh, they hear us. We're also going to go march through the streets. We have people waiting us at the Capitol Reflection to march to SCOTUS. So
good for you. Good for you.
Do you think that today's testimony, seeing it on TV, will change people's minds?
I hope it will change people's mind. I think Dr. Ford is just being upfront about what she's been through, and I think the way it's going. I almost think I called it a trial because it feels like when they're talking to her, it's almost like they're putting her on trial, which is what happens to victims over and over again. We put them on trial when we should be believing them, and so if there is. If there's any concern, let's have an FBI investigation.
They gave Anita an investigation. So why aren't they giving her an investigation?
They did. and let's let all the witnesses come and testify, and then the ones who refuse to come, like this Mark Judge out there hiding out at the beach house somewhere.
I love
let's
Dick Durbin
subpoena
for
him.
saying that.
Let's subpoena him. Yeah. I don't know that there's. I just think that if we insist on the truth, if we insist on listening to the victims, if we insist on an independent investigation, that's the best place that we can be in right now. And Americans are watching this, and actually people around the world are watching this right now. I don't know if you're watching the coverage. That's what's happening.
She's so good. Look how sweet
I know. You know, it's her nap time, and I don't know why she's so awake. She must feel the excitement. Yeah.
I'm from Chicago, so I came here just for this, and I'm with your constituents. So,
Thank you.
My cousin and I flew in just from Chicago on Sunday, so and we appreciate you and Dick Durbin for standing up for us.
I have to keep her on schedule.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
I just showed my ass right.
Did you video it?
I videoed all of it.
Okay, and I live feed. I'm gonna take it.
Thank you very much. Where did
I just want to say I admire your work. Thank you for everything you've done. They've been here all week, and I was here a couple of weeks ago. It's the same thing. They push back. They give you a hard time. They block the way. Tried to go into Senator Sullivan's office the other day, and they're all in there chanting and doing their thing. You can't conduct business up here with these people around.
So how do you feel about their cause? You know, they say they're here in support of Christine Blasey Ford. What do you think about that? And what do you think about the support that they're showing towards?
I haven't seen anything from Christine Blasey Ford except, hearsay. Look, I'm an attorney. I've done sexual assault cases from both sides, okay? And, not every claim is true, okay? I've done a number of court-martials for the military on people accused of sexual assault. And, oh, wow, everybody's got to believe the so-called victim until we get into it and find out that the so-called victim is lying. I don't know if this woman's lying or not. I have no idea. But we need to start out with a presumption of innocence. She needs to get a chance to tell her story. Judge Kavanaugh needs a chance to tell his story. I've appeared before the man 3 times. He ruled against me all 3 times. But his reasoning was solid. I couldn't complain on it, okay? He did a good job.
So what do you think about people saying that we need an FBI investigation to sort this out? How do you respond?
For what? The FBI would do a criminal investigation. They don't have jurisdiction, number one. Number two, their job as far as preparing for a hearing is to do a background investigation and give it to the Senate. The Senate is the one who actually does the interviews. There's no need to do it. It would be stupid to do an FBI investigation because the people you've got coming forward are going to come forward at the hearing and they're going to be interviewed. Let's get it all out. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. This polygraph thing. And I saw the guy who supposedly did the polygraph. He said they did 2 questions. You can't do a polygraph with 2 questions. Maybe 2 relevant questions, normally 3, but the whole idea is to have comparison questions to put it against. I've not seen that polygraph report. I've not seen the charts. I can't interpret the charts, but my polygrapher could, and I'd like to see those. I'd also like to know if there was any independent corroborative computer programs, which do exist, that were being used for that polygraph test. I suspect there was not.
So, because these allegations are so old, 35 plus years old, there's not a lot of corroborating evidence. Where do we go forward from that? How do we move forward with this case if there's not a ton of evidence?
Well, I think what they're doing is put this Dr. Ford on the stand and let her testify under oath and let her stand up to cross-examination.
Do you think everybody's mind is already made up? Senators have already made up their mind. What difference do you think this hearing will have today?
Probably not much. Look, I saw Senator Gillibrand yesterday. That was disgusting. And she's an attorney, and she's supposed to be somebody who is in favor of civil rights. You come in on these things with a presumption of innocence, you listen to both sides, and then you make a decision. And she's already said, my mind is made up. He can't say anything to change my mind, okay? Now I understand, and again, I don't know, but I understand that 2 people are coming out saying, 2 guys saying, look, we were the ones that had the situation with her. okay? And I don't know whether it was consensual or not. I have no idea. I haven't heard that much about it. But it just seems to me that if we're going to do this, we got to do it right. We got to do it fair. What is really ticking me off is all these snowflakes over here are acting like fascists. Okay, they accuse the Republicans of being fascists. No, the tactics that they're using are the same tactics that were used by the fascists in the 1920s, the Nazis in the 1930s, and the communists in other venues. All right. As far as I'm concerned, they need to read the Constitution, stay with the Constitution. We have a Constitution for a reason. These people would overthrow that Constitution.
Hi, we're with the DC News Foundation. We're just interviewing some people, asking. DC News Foundation? Yeah.
What is it?
It's an online publication here in Washington, D.C.
What is your bent?
We just report the facts. Like, we're just asking questions. Yeah, it's quite a statement. DC News Foundation. So we're just asking why you guys are here. You know, what you're hoping that these protests accomplish.
No, I do. Sorry.
Yeah, so we're just asking, you know, why you're here, what you hope that these protests accomplish.
I'm here as a survivor and as a human being here to support other human beings, and that consent matters, and that our bodies matter, and that I hope Dr. Blasey Ford feels our support and love.
Okay, so what do you think is going to happen at these hearings? Obviously, it's going on right now. But do you think that this is going to impact the vote? Do you think that any new evidence is going to come forward to either, prove her allegations, or, maybe give enough, obviously, reasonable doubt for Judge Kavanaugh?
Well, I don't think reasonable doubt is actually a useful phrase here, because this isn't a court of law. This isn't a criminal case. This is a job interview, and what we're looking at is the character of the person getting interviewed for one of the most important jobs in the country. And I want to know the ins and outs of who that person's character is and what their actions have been throughout their lifetime. And I believe that has deep impact on how these decisions will get made ultimately on the Supreme Court, and that's what I'm concerned about.
But do you think that evidence is required for character?
Yeah.
Do you think that evidence, though, is...
Nose itch.
Sorry. Just asking, do you think evidence is required when allegations are approached? People can't just make claims about somebody's character and claim that they did something. Don't we need actual, facts and proof, before we assume that people are what somebody claims them to be?
Given what I know about what it takes to come forward with a story of being assaulted, and my own experience of what it was like to tell that story and what it took for me to go through with that, my default is to start by believing the survivor and by believing the person who claims something has happened to them.
Do you presume guilt first?
That's not presuming guilt. That is... What I start with is by trusting that the survivor is bringing this forward as a means for this story to be told. And that's not, again, I don't think things like guilt, innocence, whatever, because we're not talking about a criminal case here, we're talking about behavior, we're talking about calling for investigations that can ultimately lead to those kinds of cases and decisions. What I'm here for is to show my support that I believe survivors.
Okay, so even the third woman who was in college and had been attending these supposed high school parties where there were apparently gang rapes taking place. Do you believe that?
Sure, yeah. I mean...
Does she have any guilt by association, the fact that she was an adult and she was allowing known gang rape parties to take place? Didn't she have a duty for women?
She single-handedly have the power to stop.
She could have went to the police.
Do you know?
She could have told people.
We all know what the culture of reporting stories on to the police and to authority figures are, especially in how women are punished pretty severely and not believed by default. So I don't think that.
But if women don't report, then isn't it some of their responsibility to keep allowing abuse to continue without saying anything? Aren't they strong enough to defend themselves and stand up for what's right?
In a culture that regularly dehumanizes women and regularly disbelieves women and regularly treats women as less than human, the onus on the individual only to be able to stop any kind of mass violence or to interrupt it in some way is not only a tall order, but it's
I'm not asking her to single-handedly do that. But no, but I'm saying that you're conscious if you know something is going on, something gravely immoral, you need to go to the police, or you should not be attending these parties where there are supposed gang rapes. That's ridiculous.
When you're a survivor in these situations and you are trying to maneuver through what is both best for you, what's best for your community, whatever those things.
So what was good for her community was to keep allowing these parties to continue, even though she knew.
Why is she single-handedly reporting responsible?
Well, no, but exactly. Oh, I hold men accountable all the time. I think the sexual revolution is what is destroying civilization. But I'm asking specifically, if you believe that cops aren't going to do anything about this.
Yes, I do believe that. I absolutely 200% believe that.
Cops don't care about women that are being gang raped.
A lot of them don't. A lot of them don't believe because of exactly the kind of culture that you're creating in an interview like this that presumes the guilt and lying that women.
It's not about women. I mean, look at Asia Argento. Asia Argento. She harassed a boy. It's not a male-female thing. It's in this country though. We presume innocence until proven guilty.
In this country, men are far more likely to abuse women and people of other genders than any other kind of combination of things all the way around. And when
yes, they have the ability to destroy and also build.
Women and I believe survivors. This is what.
So what would you like to see happen in the future? Like what can actually be done then? If we don't trust cops, if we don't trust law enforcement, then what do we do?
There's a lot of great programs, and there's like a lot of great work being done out there, and advocating for sexual education for children and teenagers that is actually inclusive and that actually teaches children and teenagers how we interact with one another and how we.
So that's not a parent. That's not a parent's role and responsibility. You want outside authority?
I would like it to be a community-based effort, yeah, because some parents...
Who's deciding who's educating these children?
I think we all pretty much agreed at some point in America that public education was a good idea.
There's not all of Americans believe that.
No, that was a thing that we all said, like, what we're going to do is we're all going to educate our children.
So they're going to be indoctrinated by the state.
Oh, indoctrinated. Is that...
I was indoctrinated. I fought my teachers in high school and in grade school.
I absolutely did too. And you know what? I'm a better person for it. But you know, I'm saying that when you talk about
do you want Planned Parenthood educating children on sex education?
When you're asking me what happens, what would you like to see? I would like to see a culture in which women are
not a culture that values human beings and sex again. Wouldn't that be a greater culture?
I don't know. I'm for that. Yeah, that sounds great. How are you valuing sex?
I wait till marriage. I expect other people to wait till marriage.
I don't believe in marriage. Yeah. So do I get to never?
So commitment and raising children together isn't good for society.
I'm pretty sure there was nowhere in there that anybody has claimed that was a bad thing. I don't know where you're getting your quotes.
You guys are all wearing Planned Parenthood shirts, and so.
This is not a Planned Parenthood shirt. This is my shirt.
Yes, That's awesome. But other people in your groups are wearing Planned Parenthood shirts. NARAL is providing a lot of resources for this.
And I support NARAL and I support organizations that elevate and lift up women and other people.
What about unborn women? What about unborn women? What about babies?
I knew we were gonna get to. I knew it.
Because let's be honest though let's be honest. This whole debate is really about Roe. That's why you guys are out here.
You guys are out. Like it's such an interesting way to frame things. That. Oh, we're done. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You want a different point of view?
So, what are you hoping to achieve by being here today? And how do you think this is going to impact the proceedings?
Well, as a survivor myself, I know how hard it is when you don't feel supported. And so we want to make sure that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford knows that women support her, that we believe her, and that we've got her back. And so we're here today in solidarity with her because her testimony matters, and this is an incredibly important, pivotal inflection point for us as a country about, it's very simple. Do we believe women's stories? Or is it not that important? Do we think that sexual assault should disqualify someone from a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land? Or is it really no big deal?
So, the debate right now, there's so many sides to it, but people are saying, how do we reconcile believing women when they accuse someone of something, along with, presuming that someone is innocent before proven guilty? How do we reconcile the two to be fair to both sides?
Well, the thing is that we had, everyone, including Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and her attorney, have asked to have a full, thorough, impartial process. An FBI investigation would do that. We don't know why the Senate Judiciary Committee wouldn't have a full, thorough, fair, nonpartisan investigation through an FBI investigation, which is what they would do in any other case, and certainly what they did in the case of Anita Hill. And we also just want to make sure that we're thoroughly vetting our candidates, because just the fact that 5 allegations have come out in the last few days and with increasing veracity, indicates to me that there wasn't a full and thorough vetting process, or that women are not considered to be constituents, or not considered to be an important part of our political process. And if that's the case, then, we're going to have to vote all these people out, because women are more than 50% of the population, and we vote, survivors vote, and our voices matter.
And do you think that the solidarity today and all the protests are going to make a difference, or do you think that senators and the public have already made up their mind and it's not going to make a difference on the confirmation?
No, I know it makes a difference. I can feel it here today. It certainly makes a difference to all of us who have been feeling so terrible for all of these weeks, seeing our own senators use the same techniques, the same abusive techniques that those who have assaulted us previously have used on us. Everything from gaslighting to victim blaming to misdirection, to even just completely out of hand rejecting the accusations and calling just someone telling the truth an attack when it's simply someone speaking their truth.
So let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh himself. The most recent stories that came out just last night and are dominating the news cycle today is that perhaps 2 men have come forward saying that they might have been, Brett Kavanaugh wasn't the one who was involved in any of these incidents. What do you make of that if 2 other people are claiming that they might have been the ones involved?
I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard a single thing like that.
Okay. Sorry. And do you think it's possible that maybe it wasn't Brett Kavanaugh? There is no evidence to pin him down to that, and there are a lot of people who can't actually place him at any of the parties that, Christine Blasey Ford or other accusers are talking about. Do you think that there is maybe a window of doubt that maybe it wasn't him?
No, not based on the testimony I just saw. There was another girl at the party, and Dr. Christine Blasey Ford was in touch with her already. So based on Christine Blasey Ford's testimony, which is done, under oath, and it's very important to her and her family. No woman would put themselves through having all of the death threats and having to move out of their house and putting their family in danger and everything that's happened if they didn't really just want what was best for all women. And I believe that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford would not perjure herself. On the contrary, we've seen that Kavanaugh has perjured himself multiple times in the hearings so far and has made many contradictory statements, even just in the last few days, even of his own words. For instance, on a Fox News interview, he basically said that he didn't drink, he didn't party or anything like that in high school just 2 days ago, and then yesterday said, in fact, he had drank a lot in high school. And so, so if somebody is telling conflicting statements, if anyone's doing that, it's Kavanaugh.
Thank you so much for your time.
We believe survivors! 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 We are survivors! We are survivors!
Please, thank you. Stay on the sidewalk, please. Thank you. Use the sidewalk. Thank you. Use the sidewalk. Stay on the sidewalk. Thank you.
We are survivors!
Thank you.
We are survivors! 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 We are survivors!
We got us a congressman in the mix.
And my staff here.
And her staff. Yay!
We'll never be divided. The people united will 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 never be divided.
The people united will never be divided. Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, Congressman. How effective do you think it is today marching with these people in support of Christine Blasey?
Well, I think it's effective. The reality is that she's very, very credible, and I believe her. I think all of America believes her as they watch her testify, and I hope we can block this guy's nomination. I think that this is very effective. That's why I'm out here with the people.
And what do you think the most compelling part of her testimony today was?
I think her being there and just telling the truth. And I think that's the most compelling, how hard it is to come forward, and she did it. And I got to tell you, America thanks her. Not all of us only, but America thanks her.
Do you have any doubt that maybe Kavanaugh is in fact innocent?
Not at all. I believe her. I absolutely believe her.
And do you think that this will change the outcome of tomorrow, or do you think Kavanaugh will still go on to be confirmed?
I hope he doesn't, but I don't know. I mean, that I don't know. I would hope that at least some of the women Republicans that are voting would change their mind. So I don't know, but I hope it does.
And last question, if in fact he does get confirmed, what do you think the outcome of this protest is? What do you think protesters or Americans are going to be thinking?
That we were on the right side of history, that we did the right thing. We came out and said we believe her, because we do.
Thank you so much for your time. We're with the Daily Caller News Foundation. I can give you my card.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So, any follow-ups, just let me know.
No worries, of course. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you.
Keep talking like it's alive.
Kavanaugh!
So we just spoke with Representative Juan Vargas, and he is out here supporting the Kavanaugh protesters. He says that he believes Christine Blasey Ford and her allegations against the Supreme Court nominee. And there are hundreds of people out here marching in support of Christine Blasey Ford. Hi, sir. I'm with the Daily Caller News Foundation. We're just wondering, so your sign, it says Cava Rape. Tell me.
It was Kavanaugh, but I changed it.
Yeah, so what makes you believe Christine Blasey Ford over Kavanaugh?
Well, I was protesting in the Hart Senate building, so I didn't get to hear all of it, but I believe her after I listened to some things that she said. And you have to give some credence to the fact that Republicans were not willing to question her. They had to hire an outside woman to do it.
Well, you know,
Doesn't that give you pause for concern? It does for me.
so Chuck Grassley actually did offer Christine Blasey Ford the option to testify in several different forums. He even offered to send prosecutors to her house to talk to her. And today, hiring an outside counsel, I think that they think that that gives the optics of a fair trial. Do you agree with that?
Well, first of all, it's not a trial.
A fair hearing.
Optics are worried about optics. It's their job to question her. So the fact that they did not question her has to give you some pause for concern. Everybody on the Democratic side gave their own questions. So why shouldn't the Republicans? They don't want the optics because they know that 40 years ago they did the same thing. They didn't want to repeat that.
How compelling? What was the most compelling part of her testimony? I know you said you didn't hear all of it, but what to you stood out the most?
You know, I think sometimes when you listen to people, when they talk to you, when you make eye contact with them, you believe what they say, that it's not made up, that they don't just want to destroy their own lives. What does she have to gain by doing this and coming out? It's going to be the rest of her life is forever changed. So there has to be some kind of purpose behind.
So by the same token, do you think when you see Kavanaugh testify and you look at him and you hear you hear him speak and make eye contact with him, do you think that he might be a believable figure too?
So again, look at his history. He lied about other things that they've done with the emails and for one of the other court appointments with when he was working for the Bush administration. So if you feel like somebody has lied for that, then why wouldn't they lie again? I believe he deserves fair, it's an accusation, I believe he deserves a fair shot. But why not reopen the FBI background? There's so many things that they're not doing. They didn't bring in Judge. Now, everybody knows Judge is going to be a terrible witness for him because of, I mean, when you write a book about your life and it's kind of goes along the lines of some of the things that he's being accused of, it's a little tough, right?
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Keep going, keep going. And it's alive.
So we're following the protesters. It seems that they are going to the end of this reflecting pool. And it seems that there's a rally and a few speakers. We're going to see if we can hear what they're saying. This has been going on since about 8 in the morning. So they've been out here approximately already 5 hours. Seems a lot of them are arrested, a lot of them being paid for this. A lot of NARAL and Planned Parenthood supporters against Kavanaugh. And then Concerned Women for America is the primary pro-Kavanaugh that is supporting Kavanaugh. seems a lot of people have not heard the testimony since the beginning of the hearings today. So many people do not actually know what Ford said. But it seems that they had been in support of her prior to her given testimony today.
We have protesters out here holding flowers. Miss, what do the flowers represent?
The flowers are for each of us to write a message to all of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to let them know that we believe Christine, we believe Debbie, we believe Julie, we still believe Anita Hill. And I believe some of the organizers of today's protest are going to present these to the court and put them on the steps outside so people can see just how great our numbers are today.
And how effective do you think that will be, and do you think it'll change the confirmation vote tomorrow?
It potentially might not change the confirmation vote tomorrow, but I believe because there are so many people here today and there's been such a public outcry, I would hope that at least some people's mentality will change. If not today, then maybe it'll change tomorrow, but all we can do is show up today. Half of the issue, the majority of the problem is just showing up.
And you say you believe Christine Blasey Ford. Is there a reason that you do not believe Brett Kavanaugh? Do you think that there's a glimmer of a chance that he could be innocent?
I believe that based on I was listening to the hearings this morning, and I just believe because of the amount of pushback and danger that Dr. Blasey Ford and the other the other survivors have been put in so much danger because of them coming forward and them telling the truth. Nobody would willingly put themselves in that situation. I'm also a survivor, and there are times that there are many years that I never said anything or told anybody about it, and I can understand that feeling of being ashamed and having your agency and your autonomy taken away, and I can completely understand why these women took so long to say anything because it's incredibly difficult, but there's no reason why somebody would put themselves in so much danger and have to relocate their families and have to deal with this public display of like a smear campaign against Trump says it's against Kavanaugh, but there's equally just as terrible things happening to these women, and there's no reason for them to put themselves in this danger unless they were telling the truth.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems that there are a few handmaid tale women, and so we're just going to see what they're here for. Hi, ladies. Hi. Can you just explain to me why you're in these costumes, what they are, what they represent?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we're dressed up as handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale.
What is that?
That is based on a dystopian novel by Margaret Atwood, in which women's rights are taken away, and women are subjected to some of the same kind of things that Christine was subjected to. And
like what?
Well, intimidation, taking away all of their rights until they're just reduced to their bodies and to sexual objects. And Margaret Atwood's book so beautifully puts together why that's horrific and why that's awful and how so easily we could slip into that right here, right now. We want to keep,
we
want to keep it as fiction and not reality.
Okay, so this is related because of Christine Ford. You're saying being intimidated. What about intimidation on both sides? You know, there were death threats also given to Brett Kavanaugh's wife and children. So, I mean, exactly. I guess my question is, what is the connection specifically?
Well, as a mother, and as somebody with a family, I don't think anybody should be subjected to that. So I think everyone can agree on that.
Okay. And as far as taking women's rights away, so where does that come from? Where does that come into play?
As far as Christina?
Yeah, as far as the situation.
Who's been in a situation as a teenage girl where you have been in an unsafe situation, and the fact that she's had to be re-victimized and have to go through this again, that's really what I'm here for, is to support her and let her know that we believe her.
Okay, and so as far as the investigation, everyone's calling for an FBI investigation, and the testimonies giving today. When all the facts come out, do you think that there's a possibility that her accusations might not exactly line up?
Well, her accusations she's put forward, and she has witnesses that have also done sworn statements, as far as I early on listened to, and she called for an FBI investigation so that it was impartial, so that they could investigate, so that they could say this is what happened. She didn't want any of this. She didn't want the search.
She also had an anonymous letter. She didn't really even want to be outed.
She didn't want to be outed, right. So she just wanted to put the facts forward and let the let the panel do with it what they would. And that's really where she stood. She wasn't out there to be bipartisan or to say this is a Democratic or Republican. This is a woman who went through something, and she felt like exposing and putting this out there for people to judge a judge. That's, I think that's really what her statement was, and that's. I think we can all agree. We want to know what the facts are.
Okay. So do you think today's testimony will change anything? Do you think that it'll affect the vote tomorrow?
No, it seems like they've already made up their mind. That's what's sad.
Okay. And have you heard of any of her testimony today that she actually?
I did this morning. Yeah,
Okay.
I think she's brilliant. I think she's brilliant and
about
intelligent, and it's just, if you just listen to her, how could you not believe her?
I agree. Well put.
All right, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So we're still here at the protest. It seems that everyone's raising their signs and standing in solidarity for Christine Ford and the other accusers that have also come forward. Seems many signs. One sexual predator on the Supreme Court is enough. No rapists on the court. Seems that everybody is pretty convinced here that Judge Brett Kavanaugh is a rapist. Seems that there's also some people speaking. We can't exactly hear what they're saying, but they're laying flowers in symbolism for all survivors. I'm going to try to see who's speaking and what they're saying.
Pardon me?
Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
And we cannot allow that to happen, and we must tell all of our governors and state and local elected officials that it is their responsibility to protect us on the local level. And if they don't, we will ensure that they are jobless come every election that happens in this country. That is all the way from the school board to the state houses. Every single election, we are going to show up. So I'm proud to be standing with all of you, but we need to know that the work does not stop here. We must keep going. We must keep working, and we must be truly intersectional in the work that we do. Ensure that in every room you are in, you are not talking about people of color, but you are centering people of color. Ensure that you are not meeting about women, but that women are leading the conversation. And ensure that the voices of our young people are at the forefront of every conversation. So God bless you all. Let's continue to fight together. We are only as powerful as each individual who has shown up here today and those who cannot be here. Those people who are locked up in prisons and dealing with sickness and illness and things all over the land. They deserve our support. We are privileged to be able to stand here. We must continue to fight. Thank you.
That was a Women's March advocate. Now Linda Sarsour is speaking. She has already spoke. She has been speaking all morning.
Can I get my banner? My banner, I'm asking for survivors and women of color to be on the front. Please, see that black umbrella right there? That's where I need you to go line up, and I need everybody else to line up behind them. A couple of things about while you're marching. Please watch children. Watch our elders. Watch people with disabilities. Look out for one another, right? We're a community, we are a family, and we have to act like family even when we are in protest. So be safe. We're going to march to the Supreme Court, which is
They are now marching to the Supreme Court.
belongs to us, the American people, and we're going to go there and make it loud and clear that the Supreme Court is ours, and we're going to fight for it. So let's march.
So protesters are now descending from the Capitol to the Supreme Court. It is a day of rally and marching. Previously this morning, they had been intimidating Republican members of the Senate, standing in their offices, making a kind of an uncomfortable scene for some of the Republican staffers. We witnessed a few instances of that. There was a sign, God is watching and she is angry. Interesting sign. Parties over for sexual predators. A lot of handmade signs, a lot of Believe Her shirts that seem like they were manufactured from the makers of the Women's March. People are swarming Linda Sarsour. Seems that there are children, young girls here. They're standing in front of a banner. I'm going to try to see what it says. Excuse me. Says, "We won't go back. Believe survivors." Looks like little children with their parents, presumably at this protest. Many women that we spoke to said that they were survivors of sexual assault. Large number of women are calling themselves survivors. So it seems that this is really inspiring women who supposedly had gone through an experience like this, like Christine Ford is saying. And so I think that they're also finding solace in solidarity with each other and hoping that this does not happen again. Trying to organize their mass of people behind a banner as they march to the Supreme Court.
But it's really good. Okay, can I help you? Akeem, I'm just going to roll with you, okay? All right, I got you. All right.
We see some familiar faces, some activists who are at a lot of these protests. We see Linda Sarsour. She's organizing a lot of people. We have people from the Women's March. Hundreds of people today gathered, and they're now marching towards the Supreme Court, hoping to make a statement about not confirming the Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh. A lot of people holding signs, supporters, people saying that they were victims of rape and sexual assault and sexual harassment.
Linda Sarsour is in the front of this protest. I think she is a full-time activist and protester. A lot of these different protests and things happening in Washington are really organized by the same people. It seems like we see a lot of women from the Women's March, a lot of NARAL or Planned Parenthood advocates a part of these various protests. A lot of people that have their gay pride regalia, and also I've been really active in even like the anti-gun movement or the gun control movements since all the school shootings have been happening. So it seems a lot of these people really find all of these causes very serious, and it seems that they cover a lot of them. I see a man.
Kavanaugh has got to go. No means no.
Clergy members, gay pride flag, scarves around themselves. Forward hearing a few things of what she had said today and believing her, but even more so.
No means no.
They find her brilliant. They find
Kavanaugh's got to go. A lot of people also bringing up the point, why would Christine Blasey Ford do this? That's the question that we're hearing a lot of people ask us. Why would she come forward if she wasn't telling the truth? A lot of people dismiss some of the holes in her allegations, some of the holes in other accusers' allegations, saying that Christine Blasey Ford is a credible source and she has no motivation, no political motivation, other than to tell her truth and to tell her story. She seems to be making quite the impression on a lot of people here today. People who listen to her testimony do believe that she's telling the truth and that Brett Kavanaugh did, in fact, attempt to rape her. So we will find out more as we continue to cover this protest.
We see an American flag with a woman's uterus. It really seems like a lot of the underlining passion is really about the possibility of Brett Kavanaugh overturning Roe. It seems that a lot of this is the hot button issue of, what they call reproductive rights, women's health care, abortion, birth control. They're really terrified that these sexually autonomous rights are going to be overturned. And so I think a lot of this heat and passion against Brett Kavanaugh is really because of that potential flip that he possibly could have on the court. Obviously the claim is to believe women, and most of the people that we spoke with, believe women at face value. Without much evidence needed.
Initially, it didn't seem like we were seeing a lot of references to Trump. A lot of people were focused mostly on the victim, and they were focused on Christine Blasey Ford and her allegations on Brett Kavanaugh. But now we're seeing some signs here explicitly stating to stop Trump's nominee and Trump's pick. So the underlying tensions of overturning Roe, coupled with Trump's nominee and some political adversaries saying that, Trump's pick, they will resist. These are all underlying tensions here today as people come out to support Christine Blasey Ford.
Okay, we're just following this out until they reach the Supreme Court, and I'm sure they'll be protesting the rest of today as well as tomorrow morning when the vote actually takes place. I wouldn't be surprised if there are maybe riots and protests if they do vote him on through. That would not surprise me from the crowds that we've been interviewing today. This has been Vandana and Jessica
at the Daily Caller News Foundation. Thanks so much for watching.